What if you were left alone in the middle of the ocean for 14 months, on a tiny boat you couldn't control? No way to contact the outside world. No human face to see for over a year. No roof over your head. No flat ground to sleep on. No food to eat. And no fresh water to drink. Just one thing surrounding you in every direction. A vast blue ocean, violent and relentless, filled with storms. How would you survive? And more importantly, could you survive under such extreme conditions? Even imagining a situation like this sends chills down the spine. It's almost impossible to comprehend how a human being could stay alive in circumstances so brutal and unforgiving. But in this video, we will learn about a man who was accidentally lost in the Pacific Ocean and was forced to face these unimaginable conditions against his will. Who was Salvador Alvarenga? And what is the incredible true story of his survival? Did you know that even if all the land on Earth were combined, it would still be 3 times smaller than the Pacific Ocean? In an ocean this vast, if a person goes missing, the chances of ever finding them are extremely small. Salvador Alvarenga was a fisherman from Mexico who made a living by catching fish in the Pacific Ocean to support his family. Like any other day, on November 17, 2012, Alvarenga headed out to sea with his friend Cordova to go fishing. The boat they were using was just 7 meters long. It had no roof and no cabin. On board, there was only a small icebox to store the catch and a small motor to power the boat. Both fishermen already knew that a storm was approaching, but driven by the lure of earning more money, they chose to go out to sea anyway. Taking the risk, they headed nearly 120 kilometers away from the coast, deep into the Pacific Ocean. At 1 o'clock in the morning, the storm struck. Forced by the raging waves, they cut loose their fishing nets and let them sink into the sea, then turned the boat toward the shore. For 6 straight hours, they pushed the boat as hard as they could in that direction. They were just 24 kilometers from land, and the mountain peaks on the coast were clearly visible. But then, the boat's engine failed. The radio was still working, and they used it to transmit their location to their boss. He assured them that help was on the way. But moments later, the radio battery died, and all contact with the outside world was suddenly lost. Imagine the level of frustration they must have felt in that moment. They could no longer control the boat, and their connection to the outside world had been completely severed. Land was painfully close. Mountain peaks were clearly visible on the horizon. But the wind was blowing in the opposite direction, slowly pushing their boat away from shore. The mountains grew faint, then disappeared altogether as the boat drifted deeper and deeper into the open ocean. Their boss dispatched a search team to find them. For 4 days, the rescue crews scanned the ocean, but there was no sign of either man. Eventually, with no leads and no sightings, the search was called off. Within just 5 days, ocean currents had carried them nearly 450 kilometers away from the coast. In every direction, there was nothing but endless blue water. In an ocean this vast, spotting a boat so small from the air was nearly impossible. They had no flare gun, no distress beacon, no way to signal for help. In those conditions, their only source of food became whatever the ocean could offer: fish, turtles, and seabirds. They collected plastic bottles drifting at sea and used them to store rainwater whenever it fell. But when the rain stopped, desperation set in. To survive, they were sometimes forced to drink turtle blood and even their own urine to quench their thirst. Day after day passed with the 2 men trapped inside what felt like a floating box. To pass the time, they fished, talked to each other, laughed, cried, and thought about their families, clinging to the hope that someone, somewhere, might eventually find them. 4 months passed, and still no help arrived. Eventually, Cordova lost the will to live. He stopped eating and drinking, and day by day, his body grew weaker. In the end, Cordova succumbed to exhaustion and died at sea. Just imagining what Alvarenga must have gone through in that moment is enough to send chills down the spine. His only companion was gone. Now, in the vast expanse of the Pacific Ocean, he was completely alone. 4 days after his friend's death, Alvarenga lost all hope and even considered ending his life. But fate did not allow it. After a brief moment of surrender, he chose to fight back, to cling to life. And somehow, in every way he could, he kept himself alive. Nearly 8 months later, a cargo ship passed through the area. Alvarenga stood up and waved desperately, trying to signal for help, but the ship sailed on without stopping. No one noticed him. Imagine the pain of that moment. The rescue he had waited for month after month appeared right before his eyes, only to disappear again into the horizon. In just 11 months, Alvarenga had drifted nearly 8,000 kilometers in his tiny boat. He endured scorching sun, violent storms, and an overwhelming loneliness that pushed the limits of human survival. Finally, on January 30th, 2014, Alvarenga spotted coconuts floating on the water and birds circling overhead. He knew land had to be close. Moments later, an island came into view. He leapt from the boat and swam toward it, reaching solid ground after more than a year lost at sea. After drifting across the ocean for 438 days, he was finally standing on solid ground again. On the island, he spotted a small house. He walked up and knocked on the door. It became one of the most powerful moments of his life, coming face to face with another human being after so many months of complete isolation. That island sat in the middle of the vast ocean. If he had missed it, he would have drifted another 5,000 kilometers before reaching land, taking nearly 240 more days. Later, Alvarenga returned home and wrote a book about his extraordinary journey. Without ever intending to, he set a record by surviving 438 days at sea, a record no human would ever want to repeat. Alvarenga's story leaves us with a powerful lesson. Never give up hope. No matter how distant the destination may seem, if a person keeps moving forward, one day, they are bound to reach it. If you found this story inspiring, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and comment below with your thoughts.